exit 1 in South Carolina. I am on my way back home, but I wanted to record this and document it because I don't want to forget some things about this story. So I guess I'm just going to call this Meeting Miguel. Um, I was in Newport, North Carolina, about to get on Highway 24 and head back towards my house here in Fayetteville, Georgia. And I was on the phone, but I was at a stoplight, and I was the next car to go. And so this guy is walking on the side of the street, and when I'm at the stoplight, or the stoplight turns red, so I'm sitting there for a second, and he comes over and he starts knocking on my window. Well, I was on the phone, and I was like trying to get my window down and trying to pay attention to the stoplight, and then trying to hear what he's got to say. And he's like, hey, can I get a ride? Can I get a ride? My truck broke down or whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay, hold on. And I had to hang up on the person I was talking to. I had a ton of junk in my front seat because I'm traveling. So I had to get all this stuff out of the way. And he's trying to get in because my window's down. He's like, how do you get in the car? How do you get in the car? Because it's locked. And so, we're trying to do all this stuff before this light changes back to green. He gets in the car, and he's very grateful, and he's like, yeah, I just need to go up the street. My car broke down, or my truck broke down, and he walked from Walmart, which was quite a walk to get to where he was, and so he was just like, can you just take me up the street here? And I was like, well, yeah, where you going? And so as we were driving for a few minutes, and he tells me his name's Miguel, and I asked him where he was from. He lived in Alabama but moved here like 4 years ago, and he's been working construction, and so found out a little bit about his life. He's been doing construction for a couple years, and I asked him if he had his own crew. He's like, no, I work for somebody else. And he has all this stuff in his truck, all these materials, but when it broke down, he didn't have anybody that could come and pick him up. So his wife, or whoever this significant other is, he referred to as his wife and as a girlfriend one time, which was kind of like a Freudian slip, I think. But he said, yeah, I was just talking to my wife on the phone, and she prayed and said, it's going to be all right. Somebody's going to help you out, and prayed, that someone would pick him up. And evidently, that was me. And he was like, my wife just prayed, that God would send somebody, and here you are. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool, and said, I'm glad I can help you out. And as we drove along, of course, it comes up, well, what do you do, or where are you from? And I tell him I'm from Fayetteville, Georgia, and that I'm heading back home now. He's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe you're heading, you got a long way to go, and he's really excitable, at this point. And so he's like, wow, you're a pastor. He's like, that's just cool. He's like, I can't believe, you're the coolest pastor I've ever met. He's like, you got earrings and everything. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I know. He's like, I know we're not supposed to talk about, two things. Not supposed to talk about politics or religion. He said, but I got to talk to you about this. And he said, I believe in that if you do good, and you try to do the right thing, basically it's going to come back around to you. And he kind of explained his belief system there a little bit, and after he said all that, I was like, well, I don't quite really agree with that. I said, the Bible says that even our good deeds are like filthy rags to God. And he was like, really? He's like, oh, that's not good. I said, yeah, it's not good. And I said, even when you look at our world around us, if everybody was just doing good, or more good, wouldn't you think that the world would be different? And I said, but obviously it's not an issue of doing good. I said the problem is that all of us are evil, and we've got sinful hearts. And then I started talking a little bit about how God sent Jesus to die for us because there was no way we could be good on our own, and how we needed a sacrifice that was perfect because God is holy and just, and he would only be satisfied with a perfect sacrifice, which we can't give and we can't make. And so, as we're driving along, he's like, wow, I can't believe this, right? And and so, well, John 3:16 says that, God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, so whoever believed in him would not perish. So, God and Jesus are the same, but Jesus is God's son. He's the second person of the Trinity. And so anyway, back to my story. He's just like so jazzed that I stopped to pick him up, and he keeps saying, man, who are you? Who are you? You're just so nice, And I was like, yeah, I'll take you on, home. I've got to go this way anyway. He's like, really? You would do that? I'm like, yeah, man, it's not a problem. He's like, well, if it's not too much, can we stop and get some barbecue for my wife? Today's her birthday. I was like, really? Today's my dad's birthday. And so we started talking about that, a little bit. And I was like, that's kind of crazy. And he was like, yeah, man, you would do that? I was like, yeah, man, I'll do that. It's not a problem. He's like, well, can I just go around, here and I'm going to give you this money and you can get it for me. And this is what, this is what we're going to get. And I'm going to go over here while you're doing that. And he's like, I don't usually just give people money, but I guess, you'll be all right, right? And I was like, yeah, man, it's all right. He's like, don't leave me. Don't leave me. I was like, I'm not going to leave you. He's like, I'm going to leave my stuff in the car. I was like, I'm not going to leave you, man. All right. So I go around and I'm ordering the stuff he wants. And, excuse me. And I was like, I'm not going to take this guy's money. I'm just going to go ahead and, buy the food for him. So I'm paying for the food, and he gets back in the car. At this time, I'm still at the drive-thru. And he gets back in the car, and I hand him the money. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I can't believe you're doing that. I'm like, yeah, man, it's all right, because, your truck's broken down. You're going to need some money for your truck. And he just couldn't believe it. He's like, wow, what? Who are you? Who are you? And I was like, man, I'm just, just serving the Lord, And so while we're going on to his house, he's just like, man, anytime you got to come back, anytime when you come back here, because I told him that I would be back probably in November to visit for Thanksgiving. He's like, well, anytime when you come back, man, you just got to stop by here. You just got to come and just, say hi. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I drove him on back, past, and we're talking still about, his relationship with God. And I was telling him, I was like, the thing about, prayer, I was like, God answers prayer. And I said, I would imagine that God's probably been working, in your life up to this point. He's like, yeah, my wife, she's constantly, talking to me about it. And he's like, I know I need to get right with God and this kind of thing. And I was like, well, yeah, I said, it's interesting because your wife prayed and God answered. I said, the thing about it is that he answered because he's alive. I was like, so many people pray to these different gods, but they don't answer their prayers because they're not alive. And I said, so, God answered your wife's prayer, and here it is, it's happening right in front of you. I think God wants you to see that. And in our previous conversation, we were talking about, how the reason that Jesus came was to save us, so that we could have this relationship with God. And so we were talking about faith, and I said, yeah, I believe that, once we die, there's only two options. You go to heaven or go to hell. And that's when we were talking about the good works and everything like that. And I was like, and it's, we have to have faith. I said, because after you die, there's no faith. You see what's real and what's not. And I said, this is why you have to receive Christ before you die, because afterwards, when we can see, we will experience what's after this life. It's no longer faith. And he was like, oh wow, yeah, I really need to work towards having faith. And so when we got to his house, I was like, hey man, can I get a picture with you? He's like, what? Really? You want to get a picture? I was like, yeah, man, I don't want to forget you. I'm going to pray for you. And he was like, oh, okay, that'd be awesome. So I get out, and he's excited about me meeting his wife. Her name's Jody. So she comes out, and she's standing on the porch. He's like, come here, come here, come here. And so she comes down, and we start talking for a few minutes. And before we leave, I'm like, hey, he's like, grabbing my hand, and he's like, would you pray for me? Would you pray for me? And I was like, of course, man, of course I'd pray for you. And I said, I'm going to pray for you. But he holds my hand, and I pray for him, and then he prays. And I'm telling you, he's praying and saying things like, God help me to be humble. God help me to learn about you. God help me to know you. I mean, it was just a crazy, this whole ordeal lasted about an hour. But it was just a crazy, thing. And the reason I want to share all this with you guys, on a live video here, was one, so I don't forget some of these details myself, but two, because I want to encourage you that, you never know. One of the reasons that I was stopped at this stoplight, of course, and he, was asking for a ride, and had I not been on the phone, and had I not been stopped, I mean, it's very possible I would have, turned and gone on. But one of the things that I have tried to be conscious of, and I told Miguel this, is that one of the reasons I stopped, I mean, because I'm a Christian for one, but also because my dad's a disabled vet, and my dad wasn't able to drive for a long time, and he still can't drive, but when he was younger, he was always going places, and he had to rely on other people to stop and give him a lift and help him get to where he was going. And so I told Miguel, I was like, this is one of the reasons I stopped, to help you too, is because of just people who've helped my dad in the past. And so when we look at these things that have happened in our lives, or we look at the way that the experiences that God has given us, I think it's a good opportunity for us to look for ways to share those same blessings with other people. Today, it was a great experience, great exchange with Miguel. And I just want to encourage any of you who may watch this video at some point to realize that God is sovereign, God is in control, and when you get the opportunity to do something nice for someone, really consider doing that, because it really can make a difference in their life. It can potentially change the direction of their destiny, and I do believe Miguel will consider and contemplate his relationship with God because of our conversation today. And it was an honor for me to be able to give him a ride. It wasn't really anything out of my way. And just to see that God had already strategically placed me at that stoplight, and that God had already been working in his life, and that I got to be an answer to an immediate prayer at that time. But then to also realize that potentially down the road, and this is one of the things that I said to him as well, was like, because he was like, yeah, I hope I can get to see you again. I was like, well, yeah, I hope I get to see you in heaven too. And so he was like, oh yeah. And so, I think that sometimes, I know it's, everybody's not going to stop for a hitchhiker or somebody, who's in a situation like that. But also, don't deny God the opportunity to use you in some unique ways along down the road. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. And hope you guys have a great evening. I've got about another 5 hours to drive, so we'll see you later. Let's see, how do I stop this thing now?